All right, guys, we got Mr. Macaroni Avocado Sandwich, aka Mac. We're always going to use his full name any chance we get. But so right now we're opening up this video progress report. This is his first S.M.A.R.T session, first official training session actually after his consultation. And right now Taylor is working with him to desensitize him to the leash. So when we met him, he was a little fearful of the leash, didn't want to put it on, trying to eat it, doing the alligator roll type stuff. So right now we're just teaching him that the leash is good. Good things happen with the leash. Good boy. Good. So right now all she's doing is approaching him with the leash. She's not saying much. Has treats the entire time as she approaches. You notice his body language. He pulls back just a little bit, but not like he used to. So it does make him uncomfortable, but he's willing to work through it if there's a reward on the other end. And as there's progress happening, he stops pulling back, is more accepting of the leash.
There we go. Good job.
She's messing with the sound of it. Sometimes just the sound of it can be a little off-putting, so she's clicking.
I'm gonna say yes now. I'm not gonna click anymore. I'm trying.
Yeah.
I can't do it. It's too much to do with my fingers.
This is a very easy exercise for you guys to replicate. He will need to be wearing a leash often throughout his life, so you definitely want to spend a little bit of time with this. You guys did this with touch when we saw you last. So basically this is just taking it an extra step further and actually putting the leash on him. And as you see, Taylor's literally putting it on him, practicing it, putting it on him, and then immediately taking it off.
Good boy.
Good.
Good job.
Equipment to dogs is very foreign. They're not humans. They're not used to wearing clothes and things like that. So really want to, they like to be free. So you definitely want to make sure that, we take our time with this, but he's definitely catching on really fast. And this isn't something you'll have to practice a lot. Once he figures out that leashes mean good things, you'll probably never have to do this again.
No, do it again. You can't touch it. Let him alone.
And what you're seeing here is exactly how you will replicate this exercise, being very slow and meaningful. You do not want to rush this. Do not try to grab him. You definitely want him to be very forthcoming with wanting to put it on. So if you try to grab him, then you may take a few steps backwards, and then you have to try all over again with where you started putting it on the floor.
So what I'm doing here, I have a treat in this hand right here, and I'm kind of distracting him with it, but at the same time it's keeping him focused. I'm asking for a sit.
Oh, hi.
It's a good boy. And when he sit, I give him a treat. So what I'm doing now, I'm showing him that I have the leash. I'm going to make a noise with it. Good boy. And I'm going to approach his neck with the leash right here. If he moves too much, I'm going to stop and pull my hands back. You don't get the treat if you don't stay still. Good boy. Good job. And the same thing when I take it off, I'm showing him my hand. I'm going to mess around with that collar a little bit because he doesn't really like this feeling too much. That's a good boy. I'm going to give him a treat for accepting that. Thank you so much for accepting that. Do you hear something? You hear something? Waiting on you. The whole purpose is I'm trying to distract him away from my hand. That's with the leash. Trying to make this a whole non-factor. Leash going on or off is a non-factor. You hear something? What you hear? You trying to bark at him? What you hear? You still hear something? You ready?
And as you guys could see in just the progression of this video in just 3 minutes, he is more accepting of putting the leash on, actually wanting to be engaged, staying in a sit. So very, very key that you guys take the time to do this so that you can, use the leash without it working against you.
I'm really pairing the leash going on with a treat, so it's worth his while. Hey there, I have Macaroni Avocado Sandwich, and we're working on eye contact now. So eye contact is the most important first behavior we teach our dogs. Basically, we're trying to get him to look us in the eye, and we are rewarding him for that motion. Some dogs who are more fearful of people, they actually don't look you in the eye. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm building this, that he isn't afraid of my eyes, that he actually looking at us. A dog who is looking at you is probably not getting to things you don't like barking or pulling on a leash. Yes, good job. So I'm trying to convince him, hey, yes, keep looking at me. So eye contact is the beginning of a lot of our other behaviors. For example, leave it, stuff like that. We're going to need him to look at us. So, really simple.
Mom just came home.
Yeah, Mom.
Pause.
All right, so eye contact is like this. So I have a lure in my hand, a treat right here. I'm going to take this treat, put it to his nose. I'm going to lure him to my eyes. Good job. As soon as his eyes reach mine, I'm going to click and then give him a treat. If you do not have the clicker, yes. Use your marker word, yes or good boy, and then give him that treat. The whole reason I'm doing that is because as soon as his eyes reach mine, walking away. Good job. I'm waiting for his eyes to reach mine. I'm going to give him that treat. Now, I'm fully aware that he's looking at the treat in my hand. However, I'm trying to create a behavior right here. So the more I use the lure, Mac, I know I see you, brother. Come here, Mac. Yes, good job. The more I use the lure, good job. She's going to understand it, but with no lure, I see him. I know I see him. With no lure. Give him a second. Good job. All right, so now we're in a different room. He was getting a little distracted in the room near Rocky. So that being said, with no lure, the idea should be the same. Yes, good boy. He's going to follow my finger up to my eyes, and then when his eyes reach mine, I'm going to click and give him a treat. This is eye contact, and again, this is our most important, but our simplest behavior at first. Good job. Now, to move on from this, to make this harder or better eye contact, I like to add time to it afterwards. So, for example, I click immediately right now when he looks at me, but for the next one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask him to hold it for a few seconds. So, here he goes. Good job. About 3 seconds right there. So look away. Yes, good job. So it's going to be moments where he actually looks away too because he's going to get distracted. He's a dog. I'm going to reward him as soon as he looks back at me. Now, I'm actually about to name it. So I'm going to name it Watch Me. Watch Me. Good job. When you say the word or the verbal cue, make sure you pair it at the same time you do the lure. So for example, as soon as I do this, I'm going to say eye contact or watch me at the same time. Watch me. Good job. He has a really good watch me already. He's just staring me down, which is excellent. And when I have a good watch me like this, I know that his stay or his wait will be very good because he's really good at staying put in a certain spot and look me in the eye. And that is eye contact. Good job.
All right, guys, so here you're seeing a very entry-level version of Leave It. So very, very important as we're working on Leave It. Leave It means look away. This is the very literal translation of Leave It.
That's a good boy.
We want him to start leaving things alone, and things you want to think about that he'll be leaving alone is, you know, chasing Rocky, things he shouldn't be getting into, toys that don't belong to him, really anything that he gets into. But in order for him to understand what this means, we need to give him a chance to make a happy accident.
Leave It.
So Leave It is one of the very few cues that we actually go ahead and name right off the bat. The reason being is that we're actually not asking him to, shake his body in any way. We're just asking him to look away. So there will be no hand signal for this because if he's looking at something, you'll have no hand signal for it. He's not looking at you. So that means that as you guys practice Leave It, that means you need to practice it that much more because you only have your verbal cue to rely on.
Leave it. Good boy.
So Mr. Man is rather dramatic. He's figuring it out. So what Taylor's doing is she's putting a treat in her hand, closing her fist. She's only stimulating his sense of smell. The reason we do this is we don't want to overwhelm him. We want to make sure that he succeeds. If we show him cheese in our hand, he's not going to leave it.
Good job.
So she's putting the cheese in her hand, closing her fist around it, and saying, leave it.
Yes, good boy.
And she just holds her fist there. Now, obviously, he's really interested in what's in her hand. And then he makes the happy accident to look away because he gives up. In that moment, she clicks and gives him a treat. And then he starts to figure out, looking away means leave it.
Good boy.
He's looking at me,
yeah. Leave it. So playing your king. Leave it. Yes, good boy.
So again, the moments that we're looking for is him just looking away from her fist. It's very important that as you practice this, you don't leave it for him. So don't yank your hand back. Don't, let him, if he is licking your hand, let him lick away. He's got to figure it out for himself. And then the moment he does that or looks away in any direction, you're going to click and you want to give him a different treat.
Good boy.
So what Taylor just did there is she just represented a different treat. The reason we don't ever want to reward him with his leave it is that doesn't mean leave it. That means, wait, you can have it later. And that's not practical if you're on a walk and you cross, a crawfish head on the sidewalk or chicken bone. You say leave it. You want to make sure that he actually leaves it and doesn't actually go for it later. So make sure as you're practicing this that you're not rewarding him with the thing he's not supposed to have.
Good boy. Leave it. Good job.
Okay, so now what you're saying is a more practical version of leave it. Obviously, the hand leave it, there's not going to be a lot of instances where you have something in your hands that he can't have if you're presenting it to him.
Boy.
But you are likely to drop things on the floor, and dogs inherently think everything on the floor belongs to them, so this one is much more useful.
Yes.
The other one is good for getting the swing of leave it, but this one is good
Leave
for
it.
actually practicing it.
Yeah, make sure you don't use cheese. Use something solid.
Yes, so she's got a piece
Leave
of
it.
cheese under her foot.
Yes.
Again, she's only stimulating his sense of smell. That is the only thing we're working with right now. He can
Leave
look
it.
at it. We know if he looks at it, he's probably going to go for it. And he knows it's there. He's weighing his options, and this is why leave it means look away. You see how he's circling her foot, but
Leave
keeps
it.
trying to go for it? That is not leave it. We want to make sure that when we say leave it, that he understands that he
Yes,
needs
good
to
job.
disengage. He needs to just
Good
stop trying to go
job.
for it.
Leave it. Yes, good boy.
This leave it is also much easier to practice
Leave it.
because
Yes.
you'll just leave the treat on the floor.
Leave it.
You won't have to touch it. Just cover it with your foot, and you can reward him with a treat up above.
Yay! Good boy. Good boy. That was a good lead. That was the best one. Good boy. Good boy. Leave it. Who was that? Do better. Do it again.
So right then, he offered down
Leave
to
it.
try to negotiate for the thing on the
Yes,
floor.
good boy. He's very smart. It's hilarious. He's like,
So he's going to try you, and it's really important that you guys make sure he doesn't get the thing on the floor.
leave it.
If he does, it's okay. You don't have to sweat it. Don't yell.
Yeah,
You know,
leave it.
just try better next time.
Good boy.
But as much as possible, make sure he doesn't get the thing you're asking him to leave alone.
Leave it. Good boy.
Very good. All right, guys, that is very entry level. As you can see, Taylor is just now moving on with dabbling from just the sense of smell
Leave it.
and moving on to him actually seeing it. Do not create any distance, okay? You see that he's still going for it. We're working. He's very close to this treat. So make sure as you're practicing leave it that you yourself can succeed. Just remember that anytime he has the opportunity to actually get the thing he's supposed to be leaving alone, you're only hurting your cue. So make sure that he's on leash, you're working within your realm. And most importantly, if leave it becomes easy, it is time for you to move on to something more difficult.
Yep.
So if you've been practicing with kibble and he's like, it looks like a trick, it's time for you to move on to maybe hot dogs and cheese, because remember that eventually leave it will be used for real life things like lizards, kids, anything. So make sure that it might equate to the same. All right, guys, that is your video progress report. If you have any questions, let us know. But he is doing awesome for his first session. Good boy.